And with that, let me turn now to our guest, Laila Baker, who is the Regional Director for Arab States at the United Nations Population Fund. If we can bring her up onto the screen. Great, we can see you now. Welcome, Ms. Baker. It's great to see you, and I believe you have some information to tell us about the situation in Lebanon, where you're calling us from. So over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Stefan, Farhan. Good afternoon, colleagues. I'm speaking to you here, from Lebanon today, where it's been just a few short months since my last visit last summer. In stark contrast to that visit in July, the mood here is very somber. Last time when I visited, the country held a very fragile but genuine sense of hope and unity. And that moment reflected the determination of the Lebanese people to move beyond fragmentation and rebuild their future under one united government. Today, that fragile stability, so carefully nurtured by the Lebanese government and its partners, is under a tremendous strain after a month and more of devastating aggression against the country. And the risk is not only to the humanitarian collapse, but a renewed fragmentation at a time when unity is most needed. Following yesterday's announcement of a 2-week ceasefire, the Secretary General called for a permanent end to the war, the protection of civilians, and the full respect for international humanitarian law. That lasting peace is essential now more than ever. And it's not only, as you said, to stop the violence, but to enable Lebanon to rebuild and restore its institutions and move forward. Over the past few days, I've witnessed quite a number of scenes. Displaced families, I've met health workers, midwives, women in shelters, girls affected by the crisis. And what is unfolding here, I must say, is not just another emergency. And women and girls are bearing an unprecedented and intolerable burden on them. Let me paint you a picture. Beirut, even last year, was a vibrant city and the one that we had all aspired to here in the Middle East. It's slowed to an almost standstill at the moment. Cars line the street. Tents are spreading out across the city, not in joyous moments, but in families in search of shelter. There are now over 1.2 million people who've been displaced. 1.2 million is 1 in 5 Lebanese. And they have been displaced in the proportions of 620,000 women and girls. That means that half of the displaced are women and girls, and they have nowhere safe to turn. I met mothers fleeing under the bombardment, carrying their children with nothing but the clothes on their back, pregnant women who spoke of searching desperately for care under the fire, or giving birth in shelters without support or privacy. Today, we were coming back from our mission, and we were actually witnessing the shelling firsthand, where one of the piece of shrapnel hit the second car in our 2-car convoy. Luckily, all of our UN colleagues are fine, but I can't tell you and impress on you what a scary moment that is. This was the middle of the day in one of the most crowded areas of downtown as people were traversing the city. UNFPA estimates within those 620,000 women who've been displaced, 13,500 pregnant women are now amongst them. And in southern Lebanon, 1,700 women who are pregnant at the moment are cut off from any essential maternal care. 200 of them will give birth in the next 30 days, and they no longer have access to midwives, health care, health facilities, or adequate support. At the same time, Lebanon's health system is currently under attack, and in the past month, more than 90 incidents have targeted health facilities, personnel, and ambulances. 6 hospitals have closed, 5 of them which have maternity wards. 16 facilities are damaged. 52 primary health care centers are no longer functioning. And these are not just statistics, they're grave violations of international humanitarian law and a direct assault on life, health, and dignity. And yet, as needs surge, the response is being constrained by severe underfunding. The shortfall includes limiting essential health and protection services and pushing an already overstretched system onto the verge of collapse. I visited an overcrowded shelter yesterday. It was a makeshift shelter of a school turned housing facility for some of the displaced. And I met families who were crammed into a single room. They're stripped of their privacy, consumed with fear. Mothers told me that they no longer sleep. And I met a very young boy of 5 years old who was so traumatized because in the short span of his 5 years, he's been displaced twice. He found some comfort in my arms, but leaving him and the many like him, the thousands like him behind, was a very disheartening and heartbreaking moment for me. But this is not only a humanitarian crisis, it's a crisis of humanity. It's a crisis of trust in the international system and in the principles that protect civilians. Indiscriminate attacks, collective punishment, and violations of Lebanon's sovereignty are not abstract concerns. They are lived realities for the population here. There's an urgent need to rebuild a rights-based order grounded in dignity, justice, and accountability. And central to this effort must be a unified national response that strengthens the institutions and restores confidence in the government. At its core, this must be the protection of the health and well-being of women and girls who faced heightened risks of violence, exploitation, and neglect. Their protection is non-negotiable. Access to maternal, sexual, and reproductive health care and protection from violence are not optional. They are life-saving. And UNFPA is working on the ground with the government of Lebanon, all of our partners, and together we're delivering emergency response care on maternal health, clinical management of rape, and psychosocial support to those women and their families. We've deployed mobile units, midwives have been mobilized, and social workers are supporting the shelters across the country. We're also distributing baby kits, hygiene kits, and securing alternative supply routes, including through the EU's Humanitarian air bridge, to sustain critical medical supplies and to help with critical deliveries. But this is not enough. Every day of inaction costs lives. UNFPA's $12 million flash appeal is only 12% funded at the moment. Without urgent support, essential healthcare services will shut down by mid-April, leaving more than 225,000 women and girls without critical care. And yet, amidst this devastation, allow me also to say that I witnessed extraordinary courage, health workers delivering babies under shell fire, mothers comforting their children, and volunteers risking their lives to help others. But courage alone cannot save lives, only action can. And the women and girls of Lebanon, they deserve and cannot wait for that protection. We must move now, for they need protection and they need justice. Lebanon must also be given the chance not only to recover, but to rebuild and flourish, united, stable, and grounded in rights, dignity, and accountability. I call on everyone here to uphold international humanitarian law, to protect civilians, and to place women and girls at the center of that equation in this response. This is not a single tragedy. It really is a recurring opening wound that with every conflict that Lebanon witnesses, it will bleed out the country, women and girls first and foremost. It must end, and it must end now. Thank you.
Very much. I'll now open up the floor for questions. Yes, Ephraim.
Thank you so much. This is Ephraim Kosaifi with Arab News Daily. You mentioned concerns and worries twice in your speech about unity. You also mentioned fears of fragmentation. And I wonder, what exactly do you mean by those terms? What is it exactly that concerns you? What are you seeing on the ground? Your colleague Imran Reza was just saying that the Lebanese authorities are telling him the communities are very welcoming of the displaced. There's a solidarity among the people. At the same time, we're hearing Israeli messages with sectarian undertones and egging on the population, one against another. What are you seeing? What are your fears and concerns? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your question. The fragmentation is the fragmentation of societies where women and girls are separated from their families, where people are left behind, where displacement really destroys the communities where they belong. This is not about the fragmentation of the government or sectarian divide. I think that the government of Lebanon has been very clear on that, all of the partners, and I second what Imran Reza's statement was. There's a very welcoming, open response from the Lebanese community, but it is fragile. These are people who need to return to their homes and to start to rebuild. We need to allow for that.
Yes, Ibtisam.
Hi, my name is Ibtisam Azem, Al Arabi Al Jadid newspaper. You talked about attacks, Israeli attacks on health care facilities. My question is, given the intensity and the scale of these attacks, do you believe that these attacks are deliberate? And can you talk about the consequences of these attacks? How are they influencing all your work and the daily life of Lebanese? Thank you.
I'm not a politician or an investigator to determine the deliberateness of any attack. But what I can tell you is that as UNFPA, I have witnessed on the ground the results of those attacks and the burden that it imposes on women and girls. They are suffering immensely. The shelter where I was, there are 3 bathrooms for 250 women and girls who live there. Now, as a woman myself, I can't imagine what it would be like to be pregnant or to have my period or to just be exposed to that kind of crowdedness. We've seen the attack on health workers, which is diminishing an already strained healthcare system. And certainly the destruction of infrastructure and the loss of life is a breach of any international humanitarian law. We call on all parties to exercise restraint and respect the order for and protection of healthcare workers as a group.
Thank you for this reading, Stefano Vaccara, La Voce di New York Ital Press. 2 questions. One is about, I mean, you in the beginning said that that you felt the mood of the people that you're encountering, that changed a lot. So I have 2 questions. One, what the people think of the UNIFIL? Do they expect that UNIFIL could do more than what it's doing? That they should be acting, I don't know, more in their protection, should have done more, or they don't expect anything from them because that's the situation? And then if you heard people describing, I mean, for the future, what is the solution? Do people think that, okay, of course there is one side that Israel is attacking, but do they feel that there is something that should change in Lebanon? For example, how do they talk about Hezbollah? Do they think like, can you I understand that it's a difficult subject for you, but because you are there, but did you hear that there is a change of mood also toward what this crisis is about? I mean, how can finish? What do people expect to have an end of this?
I don't work for UNIFIL, and I didn't discuss that, so I can't comment on it. But regarding the solution, every person that I spoke to, and this isn't by no means a representative sample, but every single woman that I spoke to, every person on the street who just randomly gave an opinion, everyone was in agreement that the Lebanese deserve the right to prosper and to deal with their affairs internally, and that all that they would like is to live in dignity and harmony and to return to their land. Everyone who I spoke to who was displaced was counting the hours until they could go back and live in peace wherever they came from. And I think that was a universal sentiment. So they are hoping, one, that the war will stop, that there will be a permanent ceasefire, and they'll be allowed to go home and live in peace and dignity. I think it's very strongly reiterative of the Secretary General's statement that he made in that call today.
Thank you very much, Bisana Bakwek with Al Jazeera Arabic. So in your remarks, you said that this is not only a humanitarian crisis, it's a crisis of humanity and a crisis of trust in the international system. and the principles of protecting civilians. When you go to these shelters, you meet these women, you meet the 5-year-old child, and you witness firsthand the suffering that they're going through. What do you tell them as you sense this skepticism when it comes to the international system that has failed to protect them?
These are people who are desperate. I met people who had been displaced in the same shelter twice within the last 18 months. For them to be frustrated, to be angry, to be expectant of more from the international community, I think is completely understandable. All I can do to comfort them is to say that what at least the agency that I work for in protection of women and girls is working hand in hand under our Secretary General and all of the partners of the United Nations to bring calm, peace, and stability to Lebanon as best that we can under that international order. And in the meantime, we will try to do our best to alleviate the immediate suffering by providing urgent humanitarian assistance, whether that's medical care, baby kits, hygiene kits, or even having a conversation with someone and taking the time to speak with them. I think more than anything else, they wanted a space where they could speak to people and they would be heard. And I think that UNFPA and its partners does an amazing job in that. And we try also to bring that back to fora like we are here today with you as journalists and the media. And I hope that you will amplify that voice. They deserve it.
Abdulhamid?
Thank you, Farhan. Thank you, Madam Laila. My name is Abdul Hamid Saya. I'm from the Arabic daily Al-Quds Al-Arabi. My question is about Palestinian refugee camps. How do you characterize the situation there? Are they hosting Lebanese displaced people? And what about women in the refugee camps? Are they also opening their arms for their sisters coming from the south? And a related question, how do you see the segments of the Lebanese society? Is there some kind of solidarity among all segments of Lebanese confessional society? As you know, there are so many sects, there are so many groups. How do they, are they standing together now? Thank you.
Again, all I can tell you is what I've witnessed and give you feedback from the people who I've spoken to. On the Palestinian issue, probably UNRWA is better placed than I am to comment on that. In the shelters where I went, in the places where I visited, there was a very welcoming attitude. I didn't feel any sort of discrimination. I felt intense solidarity. And I think that there have been many lessons learned over the decades for Lebanon that solidarity wins a lot more for the social fabric of Lebanon than division does. And I genuinely perceived unity, a different narrative, solidarity amongst the people, and a genuine desire to bring not only an end to the war, but stability back to Lebanon. In order for that to flourish, like I said, you need a permanent ceasefire and you need Lebanon to allow Lebanon to deal with all of the issues that, that you raised.
Evelyn?
Sorry, thank you. Evelyn Leopold, Doug Hammarskjöld Fund for Journalists. You have the women and girls separated from the rest of the population, is that correct? And if so, why, aside from the obvious need for medical separation?
We don't separate the women and girls wherever they are. We just call attention to them because, like I said, oftentimes women may be invisible in these kinds of crises. While all eyes are turned to the military and the military conflict and focus on that, there are civilians, namely women and children, who bear an extraordinarily heavy burden of the displacement. If you are displaced in a crowded shelter, it's bad enough to be any person in that circumstance. But as a woman and a woman of reproductive age, or one who has family or aging, you have certain reproductive health needs, certain protection needs, exposure to exploitation and risks that call special attention to that. And that's UNFPA's job to make for sure that we bring all of our partners, we convene them together, we coordinate, and we ensure that there's protection and response under those circumstances.
They're not being separated all the time for any reason. I mean, is it
We are not
normal?
separating anyone. We go to the shelters, but our assistance is targeted. Sorry if that wasn't clear. We don't separate anyone out from any community. Where women and girls are concerned, we provide focused, targeted assistance so that they are not marginalized or forgotten within the total equation of the emergency response. That's the focus of our work.
Thanks. And with that, I'd like to thank once more Laila Baker, the Regional Director for Arab States at UNFPA. Thanks very much for your briefing and for all the work that you do. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. Thank you
Thanks.
for having me. Goodbye.
Have a good afternoon, everyone.